Hello everyone, we're pleased today to talk to Ricardo Salinas, one of Latin America's most outstanding entrepreneurs. And he's convinced of the potential of his country, Mexico. He's founder and CEO of Grupo Salinas, a conglomerate of many companies comprising sectors like electronic media, specialized retail, banking, among others. He's the third richest person in Mexico, and his net worth is estimated to be 13.6 billion US dollars. He's also a known Bitcoin supporter and investor, and for his renowned opinion on Bitcoin, he has received a lot of recognition from all over the world, from many different companies and forums. Thank you very much for taking the time.
My pleasure, Peter. Thank you.
Dive right in. So maybe to quickly start off, what is your personal Bitcoin story? You know, when we talk about Bitcoin, we have to answer this quickly.
Well, it's a long story because, you know, my grandfather and my father have been gold bugs all their lives. So I was always educated in the evil ways of fiat and how it would ultimately collapse. However, you know, here we are, and it has not collapsed yet. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, gold has been underperforming. And during that period, I was very much aware of the fact that fiat money is basically a fraud. Okay. And the way out was through hard asset investments, mainly gold as the most liquid one. However, this new thing comes up, it's Bitcoin, and at first it becomes a toy, and then it becomes a real asset with a value that you can trade it, and people are willing to buy it and sell it. So naturally, it attracted my attention, you know, a few years ago. And then we did really well on that investment. So of course, you want to come back for more, right?
Yes, well, I mean, you said naturally, but I think there are many gold bugs, you know, who look at Bitcoin and they don't really like it.
They hate it. You know, my dad hates Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets him in a bad way.
What convinced you? You know, why are you fond of Bitcoin?
The problem with gold is it's hard to transport, hard to store. And I think the gold price has been manipulated rather easily by central governments across the world. So those are the disadvantages I see. And now when Bitcoin comes along as a new asset that is very hard to manipulate because it's traded 24 hours, 7 days a week, in many different exchanges, and governments are not so wise as to the importance of that price as opposed to the gold price. So it's been left alone, and I think it's just a better asset. You know, you can buy it and sell it much easier. You can transport it. It doesn't have storage costs. I mean, it's an amazing asset.
Yeah, I usually hear that it's an asset that you can more easily transfer around space and time, you know, as if with gold it's just like space or time, you know, and with space it's kind of hard.
Well, you know, Safety Nemos has done a lot of work in his books, the Bitcoin Standard and Fiat Standard. I think are really good books. Anybody who wants to learn about this, they should really go and read the books first, you know, because whatever we say is going to be a repetition of what Safety said or wrote there.
The book is also available in Spanish, right? Probably not by now.
I'm not sure, but I think so.
Okay, I think I heard about that. It's also available in Spanish. Yes. So what I hear from your votum, you know, is like, or your vote is that Bitcoin is a store of value, you know?
Yes.
Would you agree? It's more a store of value than it is a means of payment, because usually when people hear Bitcoin, they think it's like something that I can use to pay my groceries, but you would say it's getting there? Or?
There's a lot of confusion regarding money, you know, in general. And people don't understand how money became money. What is money? What's the difference between money and credit? I mean, it gets complicated. But at the end of the day, you know, it all boils down to human beings do really well when we cooperate. When we work together, the human species do well, all right? That's why we've become the dominant species in the world. We cooperate. Now, cooperation necessarily means division of labor and specialization. It's an inevitable corollary of of cooperation is division of labor and specialization. And that must bring trading, one thing for another. And trading, when it starts as barter, is very difficult because, I have to trade you my skins for your grain and his coal
I need
for
what
my...
you want. Yeah, exactly.
So that's how money developed. It developed as the most liquid, the most easily realizable commodity.
Yeah, the most marketable good in the
Most
market,
marketable good.
actually.
And that's why across the history of humanity, we've had different metals evolving eventually into gold. However, the gold standard has always been subject to government intervention. From the time of the Romans to the times of the Byzantines, and of course then to the British, at the end of the Second World War, they totally screwed up. And then, of course, the Americans with the Nixon repeal of the gold convertibility in '71. So the gold standard was thrust aside because of the dark interests of the different governments that like to push fiat, because fiat allows you to finance endlessly, right? That's the problem, right?
Could it evolve into a
Could it evolve?
transactional
Yes,
mean?
it could, but it's not made for that.
Yeah.
It's like you couldn't go to a grocery store and pay with a gold coin, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. That doesn't mean it's not money. It doesn't mean it's not a store of value. It's just not used for that. So I think that the number one application that you can see out of Bitcoin, well, two applications. Number one is it is unseizable, okay? And that's very important because we don't realize that all our fiat money, everything we have in fiat, is 100% seizable by the government.
Yeah,
People don't realize this, okay?
Yeah.
But that's the fact.
that's a fact. Yeah.
Your money in the bank, and we have bank, can be frozen or confiscated or taken away.
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
people don't realize that they're subject to this, but it could happen. It could. So this is the number one proposition. This is not in any bank. It's not in any financial system. It's not in Mexico. It's not in the U.S. It's not in Germany. It's not anywhere. Right? It's up there. So you can take it with you.
It can
number one.
become your own bank.
And
actually,
number
yeah.
two, it has this amazing property that you can transfer it instantaneously from one place of the world to another. So it really doesn't matter if you're using it to pay for some coffee. It's secondary.
Yeah.
And you could also do that with a new Lightning network.
Yeah, I see exactly. That's the new technology that's emerging. But I mean, I do understand your arguments. But somebody who's maybe a critic could say, how can people, from the streets, the normal guys, how can they actually get this quality and really have Bitcoin as a store of value? Or
Yeah, well, it's not in the government's interest to promote this or to make it easy.
yeah,
We could make it extremely easy if we were allowed to, right? We're not allowed to. The Mexican regulators are terminant.
Yeah.
They will
Yeah,
fulminate any banker in Mexico who facilitates access
Yeah.
to cryptocurrency.
yeah. I think I read something online that you tried actually
Yeah,
to
we
with
tried.
your bank.
The
also
next
to
day
get
we
it.
got a circular from the Ministry of Finance,
Okay.
the central bank, and the banking commission.
But I see.
3 letters
Yeah.
in one day. That
Okay.
was pretty good, eh?
Oh, very nice. But so far you haven't given up. I mean, you're still
No,
pursuing
well,
this vision.
now we're doing it through our store network because
Yes.
that's not a regulated business. But they don't want it. They don't want to make it easy for people. Now, my dad was a very strong proponent of the silver coin for Mexico. And one of the reasons that he was so insistent upon it was that for the most needy people, the most uneducated, the poorest people, the least sophisticated people, saving is a big problem.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a coin and just hold on to it, it doesn't lose its value, That was one of the main arguments in favor of the silver currency for Mexico. But of course, the powers that be did not agree. So
yeah.
it didn't come to pass.
Yeah, I see. I mean,
So what is Bitcoin difficult for people to have? Not really. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin at $35,000, right? You can buy a 100th million part of it, right?
yeah, exactly.
So in theory, people could buy 1,000 pesos, $20, $50, $100, and store it, keep it.
But how exactly would they do this here in Mexico, for example? You know, can they go to some kind of ATM, or where do they get their hands on Bitcoin?
Well, right now there's a one exchange that is the dominant one here. It's called Bitso. So you get online and then you open an account with them. They do the KYC and all that, and then they have very severe limits as to how much money. But for small amounts, it's okay. And then also, if you're a little more sophisticated, you can open your account in the U.S. with Uphold or with Coinbase or with whoever outside of Mexico, make a money transfer out there, and then they will give you the Bitcoin. You have to be more sophisticated, okay? But it's not so hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably also for like really intelligent entrepreneurs to come up with solutions, you know. And are you working on any solutions, you know, from Mexico to maybe make it easier for people to?
Well, we were the first ones to accept Bitcoin in our stores. So today you can go and pay with Bitcoin and buy anything that we sell:
Okay.
a motorcycle, a telephone, a TV. Anything that's for sale in our website, you can pay for with Bitcoin. So that we started in November. And now we're going to move to a new version of this software that allows us to receive it via Lightning Network.
Oh, nice, yeah.
So that would be easier and less expensive, right? So yeah, we're there. Now, can we offer Bitcoin directly? We're working on it, but we don't want to mess it up. And also, there's something important here, you know. Most people are not sophisticated investors. You know, a month ago it was $60,000 per Bitcoin. Now it's $35,000. Yeah, people who bought it are going to be very disappointed. And I don't want to be the one that they point at. I bought it because of you, right?
Yeah, sure.
I don't need that. So I always tell people, you know, I think it's a good investment. But if you think you're going to turn a quick buck in the next 30 days, I wouldn't recommend that kind of investment.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's what the critics now say. You know, you say, well, Bitcoin has been a store of value. Now see what happened. Can it be a store of value with that kind of volatility? But you would say it's really important to have this long-term view, you know, on the asset itself.
Well, last year it was 10,000, right?
Yeah.
And now it's 30,000. So long-term 1 year is not like a big deal, right? Just happens to be it went to 66 or whatever,
Yes,
and then it came down.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody likes to see that, but it happens, right?
No, that's true. But I mean, one other thing I would like to ask, you know, you said it yourself. I mean, with a silver coin, you had something tangible, you know, something and that's also an argument that's usually brought against Bitcoin, you know. And I can imagine that people in here, Mexico, coming from the informal cash economy where cash is king, you know, how will they ever like fathom this, you know, understand that Bitcoin is still to be taken seriously, even though you cannot hold anything except for a wallet or a key or.
Right.
How does that work?
Well, you know, most people have access to digital money. Like, for example, this is a super app of Banco Azteca. It's 100% digital money. You put in some cash or you transfer from a credit account and then you have your digital money and then you can go around spending your digital money. No big deal. Most people are familiar with credit cards, debit cards, and so then they have access to digital money. It's not a big deal to consider digital fiat money and then step to digital Bitcoin money. But it does require a level of education and sophistication that many people don't have.
Yes.
And that will be changing little by little. More and more people will see the benefits of going digital as opposed to physical. And it will change. However, if you're going to go to digital fiat, you're in the worst world possible. Because even physical fiat, you know, it's hard to print all these bills. It's hard to lug them around. But with digital, they just click a button and do 9 trillion assets for the Federal Reserve, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
They don't even have to run the printing press.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that really what you don't like about fiat? Because usually when I talk to my parents or friends, you know, I call this money that they use fiat. They're like, what? What is it? Fiat? They don't even know the term.
They don't even know what fiat is.
So what is so falso about the dinero, you know?
Well, you're German, aren't you?
Swiss German, yeah.
Swiss German. Well, you must have heard about the Weimar Republic. It wasn't too long ago.
Yes, exactly.
What happened to the fiat money there? What happened to the paper money? And that was in Germany, a highly educated country.
Yeah, exactly,
right?
yeah.
And they were carting around
wheelbarrows and stuff.
Wheelbarrows.
Exactly.
But this is not, you know, you shouldn't feel bad about being German about that, because it's happened all over the place, you know. Yeah. Here in Mexico, we chopped off 3 zeros from our bills.
Not too long ago.
In 1991 or 92. We chopped off 3 zeros and we printed new bills. But the inflation was horrific. And if you look at Zimbabwe or you look at Venezuela, you know, Argentina, Brazil, everybody's been through this. Yeah. It's a total lack of discipline. So that's why I say fiat is a fraud.
Yeah, and it's probably always the lowest income people who know are hurt the most and who are obliterated because they're...
Inflation is the most unfair tax.
It's an unfair tax. Yeah.
Totally unfair because, number one, it's
hidden.
It's hidden. Exactly. And it hits the people who have less, it hits them the most.
Yeah, exactly.
We know all about that from the 80s. Unfortunately, you know, nowadays, many people in Mexico are young.
Yeah.
And they don't remember the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunately enough that I've never experienced something like this, but
well,
I mean,
you have. Be surprised when it happens.
Yeah, okay. Do you think something like this could be around the corner again anytime soon in the world? Or, I mean,
absolutely. I mean, listen. Look what the Federal Reserve has done in the States. This is a reserve currency of the world. We're all hooked up to the dollar whether we want it or not. And these guys, they've inflated the money supply from 1 trillion to 9 trillion. I mean, it's just
crazy, yeah.
It's unconscionable, incredible.
Hollowing out their credit worthiness, actually, because
credit worthiness?
Yeah, whatever they have left of it.
They flooded the world with fake money, you know, with savings that are non-existent. And I love it the way they put it, you know. They're such cynical people. You know. Well, the Fed has been buying bonds. Yeah. Well, it doesn't sound so bad if you buy something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But what if they said the Fed has been lending money like a drunken sailor left, right, and center to anybody who shows up? That doesn't sound so cool, huh?
Yeah.
Because when you lend money, you have to collect it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, where did they get it from? Yeah.
Well, they did. You know, how they lend it? They didn't have it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's fake.
Yeah, that's why it's fake money. Yeah, but then I mean, if your view on fiat is so like pessimistic, I mean, you must be a supporter of a Bitcoin standard. Then you know maybe that's something
That's
like
why
this.
I said Safe Dinamos has done it very well in his books, especially the second one, the fiat standard, which I hadn't read until recently. But he makes a point that's very interesting. Is for years, since 1915, when the British left the gold standard, the convertibility of the pound to gold, and then in 1971, when Nixon did the same for the dollar, hard money enthusiasts have been saying that fiat is a fraud and that it's going to collapse and that it's going to finish terribly, and it has not. So there's something to be said for this fiat thing, no?
Yeah.
There's something.
Something.
And you have to understand that it all depends on how much, you know. There's the point where things catalyze and, you know, things change suddenly. And I think it's going to be like that. It's not going to be gradual. It was okay and then it was not. But,
I see.
I couldn't say when.
Yeah, sure. No, nobody can. But and maybe shifting gears a little bit, you know, again, coming back to Mexico, I was wondering, you know, about the Mexican people. Is Bitcoin a thing on the streets out there? Not really. No. So, and how could this change? I mean, because in the end, such a money is really, you know, Bitcoin is the people, or the money of the people, you know, and then it would be nice if these people got hold of it. But the question is really...
I think mostly young guys are more into it and they're more aware, younger guys.
Yes.
But by and large, doesn't mean anything right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Somebody has to do the education, but not me. I got a lot of things to do.
Okay, I see. No, interesting. But you would recommend, you already said it, like people hold Bitcoin, some part of their portfolio.
Buy and hold. This is a savings. Most people save by buying a house, right? And they don't think twice. They want to have a house, and they think that it's a good investment. They go to the bank, put some money down, and then pay off the loan. I think you should view your savings in Bitcoin kind of like that. Buy an amount, take out a loan, buy some Bitcoin, and hold it.
Yeah, just leave it there. Okay, I see. Yeah, so that's kind of the strategy that you would follow. Well, I mean, that's interesting, Yeah, I mean, you must have heard about El Salvador as well.
It's very interesting what happened in El Salvador. Remember that El Salvador, they discarded their local currency a long time ago. You know why? For the same reason.
For the same reason,
because it became a piece of shit. It's they totally mismanaged their currency. The central bank making loans with money they didn't have to the central government. And then they had this civil war and da. So one of the big reforms that took place in El Salvador was they wrote off the local currency and became a 100% dollar economy. So they don't have a central bank that can print dollars, right? And that puts them firmly in the U.S. orbit. So it was easy for him, for the president, to do this parallel currency. Since we have dollar, okay, so let's have Bitcoin. It's not a big deal, because they're not writing off the national currency. They've done that before.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a rather easy step. Panama could do it, same thing.
I mean, that's what we've been hearing in Europe, and when we talked about, when we saw this, and then some people were like suspecting that there could be a domino effect, in Latin America because of their history, as you alluded to, with hyperinflation stuff. Could you see something like this evolve, like a domino effect, that other countries, Panama, Mexico, Colombia, that they would move down the same?
No, that would require a huge crisis before, where you can write off the local currency. Like, for example, Venezuela. Venezuela is a basket case of mismanagement and corruption. Okay? What they've done to the currency there is horrific, but what they've done to the people is worse, because they're literally starving. In addition to that, because of the sanctions of the U.S., the money can't get in. It's like Cuba. Money cannot be put into Cuba easily. So in those countries, it's rather easy for people to adopt the Bitcoin and then receive money through the network and then trade it locally for stuff, So that's the kind of adoption that I would foresee. But let's not kid ourselves. The countries that have a central bank, like Mexico, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Peru, all of these countries, the U.S., they have a central bank. And the central bank is like the holy temple of the bureaucrats.
Yes.
And the high priests of this religion, the fiat religion, live in that temple, and they make a good living off of that religion. And they're not going to let it go under any circumstances. They're not going to let go. So it's rather naive, to hear people that, there's going to be a revolution and then more countries are going to adopt it, like if it was something positive for people, and that's why things get done. Things get done because it's in the interest of the guys empowered for them to happen or not to happen. And this adoption of Bitcoin is not in the interest of the powerful for it to happen,
I mean, I'm totally with you, but I can imagine that some people, when they hear it, they're like, okay, that's somehow weird, he's a supporter of Bitcoin, but at the same time, he's not seeing, or doesn't see the government supporting it, so why can't they stop it?
Unless you put exchange controls.
Yes.
Then you can stop it. See, or unless you're China, if you misbehave in China, you get a bullet in the head.
Yeah.
You can't stop it like that.
But if you can't stop it, like
If you're not willing to execute people, then it's hard to stop.
it's probably hard, yeah. And it's gonna be also a burden to these countries to probably, try to get it out of their country. I mean, many people say China must have, done a huge mistake when you go.
It's interesting how the Chinese were so tough on Bitcoin, because they also have a central bank, and they also have their religious people there, and they don't want to let go of it. Same thing with Russia. They might tolerate it, but for example, what's happening in Turkey? Horrible mismanagement, depreciation of the lira. It's just amazing how badly they've done it. And then people come in the Bitcoin world say, well, they should adopt the Bitcoin, and that would solve the problem. Well, it would solve the problem of the people, but it would not solve the problem of the government that needs all this fiat credit to continue to run the country. It doesn't solve that.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, you probably aren't that much of a supporter of CBDCs. Then,
I hate them. That's absolutely the worst thing I've heard.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to have Big Brother controlling you, let's put the central bank currency, digital currency. That is the worst. Because you can regulate as a central banker. I know exactly how much everybody has. If you have too many, I take it away. Or if you're spending it unwisely according to my policies, I can regulate that too. No, you're totally in jail, you're a prisoner.
Yeah, exactly. But do you think it's going to be like reality in a few years?
I don't doubt
CBDs, you don't doubt? And then, so Bitcoin will become ever more important, that you have like an escape valve,
That's
where
right.
you can get out of the system and
the high price of fiat are very smart. They're not going to let go of their livelihoods.
Yeah, sure. I can imagine. Yeah, yeah. So but then people need to get in as early as possible. They need to adopt this Bitcoin thing. The current market situation with this drop. I mean, would that be a great opportunity for people to buy in? We have the saying, "Buy the dip." Maybe you did as well. And
I bought the dip at 50,000.
Okay, yeah. You brought it down to all the way to 31.
So now I need to buy some more right now. But the thing is, it's impossible to predict, by the dip. How do you know if this is the dip?
Yeah, sure. But if somebody they don't have Bitcoin, not yet, what would you advise? Would you say do it over a couple of months and always buy a little, or do a lump sum, or would now be the time?
In general, if I just looked at the technical charts, and I do a lot of technical analysis, I think there's a reasonable bottom around 30,000. But, I might be wrong, I mean, who knows? It's much better to buy at 35 than at 65.
Yeah, sure.
So if you look at it that way, you're getting a discount from a few months ago. So I would really be adding every month. Every month you buy some and buy more and buy more. This is your savings, until you get to a good amount of savings that you consider reasonable for your financial position.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people usually ask how much Bitcoin would you need, to actually.
It depends. What assets do you have?
Wealth.
Let's say you had 100% of your assets deposited in banks.
Yes.
Huh?
Exactly.
I would easily take 50% of that and put it into Bitcoin, of my bank deposit.
Yeah.
Why? Because banks deposits are just such a bad asset, They're going down every year.
Yes, exactly.
Now, if you tell me you have a portfolio of stocks, well, now stocks are very expensive. The last 10 years been zooming through the roof, and people have made very good money with those stocks. When is a good time to get out? Probably now.
Yeah, and rotate into Bitcoin maybe. Maybe we can
so
see
it depends
this
on what
going
kind
forward.
of assets you have.
Yeah, exactly. So people always ask also about, there's Bitcoin, there's so many other cryptocurrency. For example, Dogecoin, which is supported by Elon Musk. And why not buy Dogecoin or any other cryptocurrency?
I hate all those shit coins because what is the value proposition, There's no value proposition. The people who made them, they pre-mine them, they keep a huge chunk, and then they can inflate them. So the number one thing I would look at in terms of crypto is this supply immutable and fixed?
Yes.
And then maybe it has a chance.
Yeah.
Like, for
This
example,
means that it
Zcash.
cannot be inflated.
Yes.
So that's what's really important. Like it's a hard cap. And
But
like
most of
Bitcoin.
these cryptos don't have a hard cap,
Yeah.
So how
And
why
they're
that?
not as decentralized enough, and that's why people can change all these facts.
So that takes us to the subject of DeFi, decentralized finance. I mean, it sounds great, but if the governments are going to crack down on something, it's going to be on DeFi, number one. And number two, they'll do Bitcoin. But DeFi really is a threat to the financial system worldwide. Because it's totally unregulated. And
stable
these
coins,
priests,
for
they love
example.
to be regulating everybody.
Yeah. Okay, what do you make of stable coins,
Stable coins, there you go. It's a digital
Probably
form.
not an investment, right? People should not invest in stable coins because they're stable. So,
Well, not only, stablecoin is like the original fiat money, which was supposed to be a receipt for gold on deposit. The original banknote originated like that. I would take my gold to the bank, and the bank would give me a note. And I would then use the note, instead of trading my gold, just trade the note. That's a stablecoin. But what happened with these notes? The banks found out that they could issue more notes than they had gold, right?
yeah, that's also what people criticize about Tether. Maybe
And
it's
then
exactly.
how are we going to know if that stablecoin is really backed by something or not? I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe being conscious of time, we can wrap up with a few last questions, So maybe I would wonder, who are your references, when it comes to crypto and Bitcoin? Where do you get your information from?
Well, I think there's a lot of very interesting people in Twitter, for example, around Bitcoin. There's a big community of people like you and I that post opinions and daily facts, and so I think that's a good way. But number one, I would do those two books, the Bitcoin Standard and the Fiat Standard. Those are, for me, the most educational texts that there are for somebody who doesn't know, and not only for people who do know, but the history of money and the history of fiat is amazing, and most people don't know that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would stick to those. And well, keeping yourself informed is important, but you have to be careful of the Bitcoin profits. There's also lots of people who have unbounded optimism about Bitcoin, and that creates a false sense of security that nothing can go wrong.
Yeah.
Things can go wrong.
Can go wrong. I mean, that's a good point. We now talk pretty positively of Bitcoin. Maybe to finish up, what are the disadvantages of Bitcoin?
Well,
Are
the
there
number
any
one is
problems?
you can get regulated, and the government can try to expropriate you. They try, and they can try to impede you from converting your fiat into Bitcoin. They can try. It's not easy, but they can try. And then they can put punitive taxes on it. So then if you want to keep your money, you have to become a tax evader.
Yeah, that's also what people fear, that Bitcoin could become some kind of tax haven. Do you think that is realistic?
There you
or
go.
Only if it's like put into illegal, if it's made illegal,
It's very easy to make something illegal. You just declare one day, and then it becomes illegal. And then you make a lot of people, you turn them into criminals, right? Like with drugs, What have we achieved in 50 years of war against drugs? Nothing. And we continue to make believe that this legislation is going to solve the problem. It's not. So as long as fiat continues to be abused as it is, people will look to ways to preserve the value of their assets. And of course, physical assets are one way to do it. You buy stuff, you know.
Yes.
But the problem with stuff is it's not easy to trade. It's not easy to make it liquid. It's not easy to transport if you want to take it somewhere else. So digital assets are a very good option. You know?
Yeah.
And there might be other digital assets that are good, not only Bitcoin, as long as they have these caps on supply, you know, and that the market is more or less liquid for them. So yeah, that could also happen, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe one last question then. Would you like to create your own cryptocurrency, which is capped like, or would you rather stick to Bitcoin?
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. I think that goes off track into something else. Again, the reason why I'm a Bitcoin believer is because fiat is such a bad option, and this is the better option, right? And so I don't need to make my currency. What for? And no, the answer is no.
Okay, yeah, great, that's good, yeah. Well, Ricardo,
Thank you.
thank you very much
right,
for all
Peter.
your good answers, and have a great day.
Good.
And thank you very much for
And
taking
you guys
the
have a
time.
good stay in Mexico. Good luck.
Yes, sure, we will. Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias.